The cabin lights flickered and died at 32,000 feet. Panic erupted as passengers clutched their armrests and oxygen masks dropped from a ceiling. The pilots' voices over the intercom were frantic, indistinct, as the plane wobbled in the dark. Everyone froze, but in row 15, a quiet woman, unnoticed and calm, slowly stood up. No one knew her, but what she did next would change the fate of everyone on board. The cabin lights flickered once, twice, and then died. Darkness swallowed the airplane, turning the familiar rows of seats into looming shadows. Oxygen masks dropped from the overhead compartments, swinging like pendulums in the sudden chaos. A collective gasp rose from the passengers, followed by frantic whispers and muffled cries. Some passengers clutched the armrests with white-knuckled grips, while others pressed themselves against the seats in front, their eyes wide with panic. Parents shielded their children instinctively, murmuring comfort they didn't truly feel. Above the noise, the intercom crackled to life with the pilots' voices, tense, garbled, and nearly lost in static. No one could understand exactly what had happened, but the fear was immediate and contagious. The plane shuddered slightly, sending ripples of tension through every seat. Cabin crew moved hurriedly down the aisles, trying to calm passengers, their practiced smiles strained under the weight of uncertainty. Amid the chaos, a quiet woman in row 15 remained still. Her hands rested lightly on the armrests, her eyes scanning the cabin with calm precision. Unlike the passengers around her, she didn't reach for a mask in panic. She didn't fumble with her seatbelt. Instead, she observed the trembling hands, the rising panic, the flickering lights, the subtle tilt of the aircraft. Every detail registered in her mind, catalogued, assessed. A child screamed nearby, and a man muttered curses under his breath, but she didn't flinch. Her calm was deliberate, almost magnetic. A few passengers noticed her serenity and turned to glance, unsure why anyone could remain so composed. Then came a louder jolt, the plane wobbling midair, sending a ripple of fear through the cabin. The intercom crackled again. Cannot maintain. Altitude. Emergency. Crew assist. The static made the message nearly incomprehensible, but the desperation in the voice was unmistakable. Panic intensified. People clutched each other, some prayed aloud, some screamed in frustration. The quiet woman leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing as she took in the cockpit's faint silhouettes through the small overhead window. Her lips pressed together in concentration. She didn't speak yet. She didn't need to. In this moment, she became the calm eye in a storm of terror, a figure of composure that hinted at something extraordinary. And as the plane lurched again, her hands moved subtly to her lap, fingers brushing against a small, nondescript item hidden beneath her bag, a signal that she was ready. The storm of panic around her hadn't noticed it yet, but the audience, and the passengers, would soon discover that she was not just another frightened traveler. The cabin erupted in noise. Passengers shouted over each other, some crying, some demanding answers. The overhead bins rattled as the plane swayed, and a sudden jolt sent a tray clattering to the floor. Flight attendants tried to restore order, their calm masks slipping under the weight of sheer panic. Through it all, the woman in row 15 remained unnervingly still. Her eyes swept the cabin, scanning faces, noting reactions, observing patterns. She watched a man attempting to reassure a child with shaky confidence, another passenger screaming into their phone in frustration. Each movement, each sound, was a piece of information she stored carefully, building a mental map of the panic around her. She didn't rush. She didn't speak. But she acted in subtle ways. One hand gently steadied a nearby elderly passenger whose panic was beginning to overwhelm them. A reassuring touch, almost imperceptible, brought just enough calm to stop a trembling from turning into a collapse. Small actions, but precise, calculated. The intercom crackled again, and this time the pilot's words were sharper, more desperate. Systems failing, altitude dropping, passengers remain seated, emergency protocols. The static made it nearly impossible to follow, but the urgency in their tone was unmistakable. The flight attendants flinched, unsure how to respond. The woman's gaze shifted to the cockpit window again, where dim shadows hinted at chaos behind the glass. She made a quick calculation in her mind, weighing options, evaluating what she could do. Her movements were deliberate. She tightened her grip on the hidden item in her lap, adjusted her posture, prepared herself mentally for what she knew she might have to do. A passenger near her let out a scream of frustration and fear. A tray table swung loose, hitting the seat in front with a clatter. Others yelled at the flight attendants, demanding answers they couldn't give. The tension in the cabin was suffocating, but she moved as if time itself had slowed. Then came a subtle turning point. While everyone else reacted emotionally, she acted strategically. She whispered a calm word to a nearby passenger, guiding their breathing. She shifted slightly, making herself more visible, not to draw attention, but to anchor a few panicked individuals around her. Slowly, her presence became a small island of composure amid the storm of fear. For the audience, it's clear, this is no ordinary passenger. Her calm isn't born of ignorance. It's the first sign of expertise, training, or experience that no one on the plane yet realizes. As the plane shuddered once more, a feeling of inevitability settled in the cabin. Something was about to happen. And when it did, it would change everything. The plane lurched violently, sending a collective gasp through the cabin. Oxygen masks swayed like pendulums, passengers gripped armrests, and a sharp cry cut through the air. The cockpit lights flickered faintly through the small overhead window, shadows moving frantically inside. The quiet woman in row 15 didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her movements deliberate and controlled. Her hand slid beneath her bag, retrieving a small, inconspicuous device, a tablet-like instrument, clearly connected to aviation or navigation. No one on the plane noticed at first. Everyone was too consumed by fear. A flight attendant stumbled past her, fumbling with the intercom. "Passengers, please, remain seated." The words barely carried over the chaos. The woman in row 15 rose, her voice calm but firm. "Listen to me," she said, low and measured. "Everyone stay in your seats and secure your masks. I need one of you to help me with the overhead panel." Heads turned in disbelief. Who was she? What right did she have to give orders? The murmurs and objections rose, but her presence, her calm authority, silenced them. Even the flight attendants hesitated, sensing competence they couldn't yet explain. She moved to the front of the cabin, assessing the cockpit door and the controls she might need access to. Her fingers flew over the small device, scanning systems, checking altitudes, calculating possible maneuvers. Every action was precise, efficient, decisive. Passengers who had moments ago been paralyzed with fear now followed her subtle cues, assisting where she indicated. A sudden jolt made the plane tilt sharply to the left. A child screamed, and a woman gasped, clutching the armrest. The woman in row 15 remained steady. She steadied the panicked passengers, directing them gently but authoritatively. "We are going to stabilize this. Trust me. Do exactly as I say." Her voice carried a weight that cut through the fear. The intercom crackled again, static, frustrated voices, panic, but she ignored it, focusing on the controls, her calculations, the plane's behavior. Slowly, methodically, she began to regain small pockets of control. The plane steadied ever so slightly, the turbulence lessened, and for a brief moment, hope flickered among the passengers. It was only the beginning. The quiet woman in row 15 had done more than observe. She had stepped into the cockpit of chaos, ready to guide the plane and everyone on board through a nightmare at 32,000 feet. And the passengers, still trembling, began to realize they weren't witnessing a miracle. They were witnessing skill, courage, and a hidden expertise no one had suspected.